Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera, salam hormat kepada semua. Khasnya Prof. Mahathir Dr. Mawadah Azman yang penceramah yang kita undang. Webinar kita hari ini sangat bertuah kerana kita mendapat penceramah dari Fakulti Perubatan, right? Dr. Mawadah ialah surgeon ya dalam bidang ears, nose dan throat. Bagi mereka yang ada resdung selalu ni, ni best lah dapat specialist. Dr. Mawadah, she's had 7 years of experience teaching ENT to undergraduate and postgraduate students in UKM. And today's session, pada sesi petang ini, beliau akan berkongsi topik prioritizing student engagement in the 21st century classroom. Sebelum tu kita ada memaparkan polling question. Ada 3 topik yang diberi. Setakat ini peserta telah menjawab. Topik yang mendapat okay, soalannya lah, which of these topics would you like to know more on? I can't read the whole question, sorry. Yeah, which of these topics would you like to know more of? The first one ialah curating lesson plan in online learning. Second one is engaging students with your teaching material, and the third one is using available platforms to deliver engaging learning. Setakat ini Hashim, betul ke B yang paling banyak?
Betul Doktor, 36%, 36%.
36% memilih engaging students with your learning material. So this is an issue a lot of us are interested in, Dr. Mawadah. Bagaimana kita nak connect dengan pelajar kita? How do we engage with them? Especially in the 21st century classroom and more so dalam konteks penjarakan sosial ini.
So, in the social distancing era.
Yes. So tanpa melengah masa, we welcome Dr. Mawadah. The floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much to Associate Professor Dr. Raihana Muhammad Maidin for the kind introduction, and Active UKM for allowing me to speak today. So actually I've prepared all my slides and my setup at the hospital, but unfortunately the internet connection was so poor that I had to now come back home, and I'm so sorry to the audience to be waiting for me. Alright, so today I'll be sharing my small experience and observations on how we can prioritize student engagement in the 21st century classroom, particularly in the setting of online teaching. So the objectives for today is to briefly introduce the concept of student engagement in a learning event. Then I will try to share some of the adaptations that took place here in the medical faculty during the social distancing era. And I would like to share my views on how we can rethink the learning events and how we can prioritize student engagement in this context, something that is very important because we want our students to be able to engage with the learning so that we know that they manage to have the intellectual perception that we have asked them to achieve. Yeah? So engagement is that double helix of motivation and intellectual perception. They have to come in hand. Yeah? So in a setting of a particular learning event, not only knowledge is delivered, but there are also elements of self-directed learning which comes from motivation, and this is what that empowers the student to master the learning. So some of the students have this self-motivation inbuilt in them. They are and however you deliver the lecture, even though it's so boring, but because they have a lot of motivation, and therefore they are able to master a specific lesson. But some students are mediocre. They don't have this self-motivation. They don't have this much drive. So we need to give some of the motivation to the students through the concept of this engagement is not only applicable to a particular lesson plan, but it is also applicable to a particular course and also applicable to a particular community, as seen by the definition given by Belden here in the year 2013. in the avenue of engagement in lesson plan, there are three particular levels. And the first level is the student perceive the lesson as participation. That means the student comes to your lecture, is present there, listens to your contents, view your slides, but there's no thinking. There's no thinking going on. The student is not putting him or herself in the lesson, is not trying to apply all the knowledge. If let's say in a particular lecture hall, it will be those students who are sitting at the back, whom when you ask a question, they will be like, is it me? Is it me? Something like that. They are not actually, even though they are present, but they're not listening. These are passive learners. So the second stage of this engagement is a student who perceive a lesson as a partner. So they are your partners. So they are going through the lesson plan with you. They are communicating with you. They are actively thinking. They have questions and they are trying to relate this with some work-related problems or problems that they see. For example, for the medical student in the ward. So they are relating to your lesson plan. So these are active learners. So the third level, which is the highest level, are the leaders. So some of the students, they are so motivated that when we are teaching them, they will challenge us as to, doctor, why is it not like this? So they even can startle you with such questions, So these students are leaders. They listen to the lecture. They they digest the information and they try to see what new knowledge they can get from this lesson. So in the context of higher education, I think we want to achieve at least a partnership level, and at least a partnership level. We wish that our postgraduate students, undergraduate students can become leaders, future leaders in our field, but that's so difficult to achieve. The majority of the undergraduate students probably will belong to the partnership level, and postgraduate students or the PhD students, we wish for them to belong to the leadership level. So with that introduction, I think in this new era of social distancing, we face so many challenges to engage with the student. Not even engaging, we can't even talk to them face to face. So if we are giving lectures, you can motivate them with, being very lively and being maybe crack a joke, and perhaps they will listen more to you. Not possible in this era of social distancing. So we face challenges in imparting knowledge in the online platforms, and challenges to motivate them to learn. So I actually wanted to know what these challenges are. So I did a naughty thing. I went to the KPT Facebook, and I browsed through the comments that the students made after the KPT announced online learning from March 2020. So many students have actually expressed their concerns and woes. So what I did was I sieved through close to 2,197 account holders, and from the account holders that I sampled, 193 account holders disliked online learning. So if a student dislikes online learning, how can they be motivated to learn? So that is a very big question, a very big challenge that we face. And then I used a Wordle or word cloud, took from Mentimeter. So I entered all these words that they express in a thematic approach. So we can see here, the biggest challenge that they face is poor connectivity, and then followed by insufficient device and extra cost incurred. They now have to pay for their internet, they have to pay for an extra device, and this has caused them to be depressed. And even they feel anxious, learning. So all these are things like deterrent to a particular lesson. So they have to troubleshoot alone. And if that is a funny thing, that there's one post, basically the student took a snapshot of a lecturer saying that, the KPT actually should extend the semester because all the lecturers are not prepared to give online teaching. So we are also not giving a good impression to the students to tell that we are actually not prepared for this. So However, looking at this, there's side, because the students are able to access Facebooks. So that means they are on their mobile phones, or at least they have a device to access Facebook. So there is a bright side to this. So this means that if we can tap into their mobile phones, at least we can deliver some contents to them. Yeah? So now that we have clearly identified challenges in engaging our students, we now, the lecturers, have to become that 21st century that is highly adaptable to this new change. Now we have to develop complex communication skills in which we have to communicate in various media platforms. You see, I've never talked in front of a camera before. Maybe I've rehearsed in front of a mirror, but not in front of a camera, right? So we have to be well versed in communicating through chatting, through conversations, through meetings, and so forth. We now see ourselves solve non-routine problems. For us surgeons, operate, we see patients and so forth. We don't need to meddle with all this internet connectivity, looking for platforms to record videos and so forth. But this has also taught us how to manage ourselves better. And to me, I developed this system-based thinking in which you want to do something, you think which system will be able to deliver this in the best way. Yeah? So we have to be this 21st century work to provide our students with a good learning environment. Yeah. So now I would like to share my personal views on how we can obtain high level of engagement in our students despite the challenges in the social distancing era. First, we would like to talk about designing an online course. So we are so very lucky that we have UKM Polio. We are very lucky. I tell you what, my friends from other universities, they don't have such platforms. Is designed so well that we can upload our contents there. It's so structured, and most importantly, it is available on the Moodle app, which is available on the student's mobile phone. So this is something that we really need to utilize. I also have Moodle on my phone because I wanted to check whether my course contents are okay. They are running perfectly. This is what I do, and I view them on student mode on Moodle. And a few things that we need to make sure when we are delivering our course on UKM Folio is make sure that it is structured nicely so that the students can browse it easily. You can do it according to topics, or in my case, I've arranged it according to the schedules. So if the student is the date is 17th April, the student know that the student has a session 9 to 11 a.m., 11 to 1 p.m. this way. Yeah? So another thing also, you need to make sure that you need to give clear instructions to students. This is very important because you are not there to explain to the students. You have so many students, you can't expect them to call you one by one. So therefore, make your instructions clear on your platforms so that it's easy for the students to follow. Okay, so now that we have gone through the course, what about the learning events? Yeah? So when curating a learning event, I've talked about this earlier on, we need to have a system-based thinking. So there's no one platform that can suit all of your teaching needs. Different objectives will need different platforms, and therefore choosing between synchronous online meeting or asynchronous learning, you need to consider your course contents and you need to consider your students' limitations. So the teaching materials need to be prepared, and after deciding lesson plan, it is important that we rehearse this because sometimes the timing might differ and certain things might not work. Links might be broken, so we have to check and recheck. One thing that we need to consider, particularly in the medical faculty, a problem we had was the problem with internet connectivity, of course. Before we started the undergraduate ENT course, we made a survey. We asked the students to check their internet connectivity, and close to the student has an internet speed of less than 1 Mbps. So therefore we had to adjust a bit. If we want to go for live meets and so forth, we have to make it very short and make sure that the students have access to it either by recording it and sending it back to them. Yeah, so that's one possibility that we can do. So rehearse, that's very important. Okay. Use a simple lesson plan. Perhaps you can use the lesson plan that was from your previous lecture or anything. So for me, I used my lesson plan from the previous ways. It is prepared traditionally, and during this movement control order, I managed to convert this to an online form. Yeah, so online lesson plan. So what I had in mind was I didn't want the student to suffer so much in terms of data. So I prioritize low bandwidth, and you can see that I delivered my lecture objective in micro teaching videos, and then as a way to evaluate whether the students managed to get the contents or not, I evaluated the students using 15 one best answer questions on UKM Folio as quiz, and my department wanted the students to attend all the lectures, despite we know that, I mean, all the contents are accessible, but attendance was a prerequisite. So I made this quiz as a proof of attendance. So the students were kind of forced to answer the quizzes, which is quite good. And the Q&A sessions were performed via WhatsApp web. And then I managed to get an active learning activity for the students, because for the online class, I was given 2 hours. So we used the think, pair and share. So the students are grouped as pairs, the Alamaya, using the pair deck flashcard factory, and they work in pairs and they share their views on the course contents, and they were asked to work on 10 flashcards for the diseases that caused stridor. And after that, they send the flashcard and we approve the flashcards, and these flashcards are given to them as lecture notes after the lecture. So that's one way how you can provide some kind of active learning and perhaps increase the students' motivation and engagement in a particular lesson plan. This is just an example. There are many things that you can choose from, many platforms you can choose from to implement this. So micro teaching videos, I really like them, and I do agree that if let's say you deliver a lecture, the lecture might last probably half an hour to 45 minutes. So a student's attention span is that great, and when you are delivering the lecture, how sure are you that the students are not missing any critical points or critical information? So I think micro teaching videos are a great way to overcome this problem. So why it is called micro teaching videos? They are micro because they are small. The duration has to be 6 minutes or less. Studies have shown that if an instructional video is more than 6 minutes, then the students tend to be less engaged. Yeah. So I have a sample of a video here, but I won't play it on this platform because I tried this in the morning, and the audio doesn't serve, is not doing justice to my video. So what we will do is, can you please all log into your Gmail accounts on your phones? We'll do some activities now. Browse the YouTube and search for dysphagia for dental students. So for the purpose of this webinar, I changed the setting for this micro teaching as public so that all of you can view. So this micro teaching video was created with the PC. I have a Windows 10 on my PC, and I created it using a game bar screen recorder, and all these are free. So if I can do it, and I think more will be able to do it. Prof Rai boleh tengok?
Could you repeat that again, Dr. Mawada? What you wanted us to look for in the YouTube. Go to YouTube and search for that dysphagia for dental.
Dysphagia for dental students. Yes, search for dysphagia for dental students and try to experience the video.
First of all, you need to know how to spell dysphagia.
There is DYSPHA.
It's on your screen.
Yes, it's in my screen. And dysphagia is basically problems with swallowing. Yeah, so I give this lecture to dental students. So the lecture itself is broken into three. Yes.
Reflex in patients
I
with
can get it. I can get it.
Nice. Good. That's great. Okay. So I hope you can experience. Is vivid. The colors are really popping out really nice, and the media is working really great on even on your phones, because the phones have very good resolution. Sometimes our PC's resolution is low, but the phone resolution is great. So one thing that you need to consider when producing these micro teaching videos is you have to limit the number of words on your slides, because sometimes we use slides so that we can record the slides to produce videos. Limit the number of words, because they as a very small is a very small video if it's on the phone. And another thing is the students can integrate what they are hearing as well as what they are seeing. So you don't necessarily have to reiterate what has already been written clearly. So in this way you can shorten your video, and therefore the students will be able to learn better, because they are integrating, they are looking, and they are also seeing. If let's say you are reiterating everything, it's better you present your teaching material as podcasts. The student need not see, they just listen to what you are saying. So make use of the many medias that the video have. Another thing that you might have noticed is that I put in some background music on the lecture. So I think it gives kind of a soothing feeling to it, but I'm not too sure. You may not agree. You can comment later. So second thing, I didn't include my presenter video on this particular teaching video. I should have, but I find that I have this habit of moving as I'm talking. So that might be distracting to certain students. So this is one example. It can be created using PC with Windows 10. So this is another example. You can probably browse this using YouTube again. You search for tracheostomy and other airway adjuncts. Tracheostomy, this is a tube that we put on the patient's neck, and other airway adjuncts, basically other tubes that we can put on the patients to stent their airway. Should be available. So this video was created differently. It's created using a free app available on online. It is Screencast-O-Matic. You notice there is a presenter video, and you can see that my head kind of moving. I don't like that. But regardless, the audio is coming out quite nice. And you can see that using Screencast-O-Matic, the mouse, that there is a yellow circle that follows where your mouse drags. So in this way, you can show the patients, the students better what you are referring at, instead of the early example in which the mouse appears as a very small arrow. Yeah? Okay. So sharing video contents is a breeze actually using YouTube. So everyone with a Google account can do this. Some of my colleagues do not know this, so I'm telling this so that you all can benefit from this. It's really great. If you have a Google account, just open YouTube, and then when you open YouTube, there will be a tab showing your channel. channel and then upload a video. So how to upload a video? You look at step number 1. There is an uploader tab here. You click the uploader tab and then you can upload your videos. Second, you need to put some settings to your videos. So we have a lot of problems in the medical faculty because we are sharing some of the clinical pictures. So although the patients have consented for these clinical pictures to be used in a setting of action, but it is not supposed to be publicly available. So in this instance, it is very important for you to set the settings right. So what I use is for the setting option, you can put the option there as this video is not made for kids, and make sure the age restrictions are there. Make sure the age of the viewers are more than 18 years old. So the viewers must first log in to YouTube before accessing your contents. This is something that's important, so we know we can keep track who is commenting and so forth. Then number 3 is you can put this as unlisted so that you can share only the link to the students and pre-warn your students not to share the link with others. It is still possible for them to share, but we have good faith in our students, right? So once your contents have been processed, YouTube allows you to do some simple editing. You can access the editor display here. You can either remove some part of the videos or even include some background music to your videos. So what I like to do with my micro teaching videos on UKM Folio is I upload them. I upload all the micro teaching videos in a single page. Yeah, so it's not coming up. Let's see how it looks like. So you can see that I share the link, all the links of the micro teaching video in a single page. So it's easy for the students to browse, and it looks as though it's a repository in YouTube. Okay. So to reach a higher degree of engagement, we can actually incorporate quizzes in UKM Folio. So these can be curated in line with formal assessments that we use in our course. As you can see here, there are many quiz formats available to suit all wanted formats that we have. For example, in the medical faculty, one-based answer questions for multiple using multiple choice selection here, extended matching question using matching here, and then you can do essay for your KFQs and so forth. So quizzes, if you put up in UKM Folio, address critical concepts. Must address critical concepts and objectives. So if you do this, then you can evaluate your lecture or lesson plan. If anything goes wrong or some of the questions the students did poorly, then you might go on and revisit your teaching materials. Maybe something went wrong when you deliver these teaching materials. So furthermore, you can also use these settings on UKM Folio. So I use this because my department wanted the attendance for the students. So what I did was I enabled the timing for the quiz to open and timing for the quiz to close. So I'm supposed to deliver the lecture on the 12th of June between 8 to 9 a.m. So I enable restrictions. I open the quiz from 8 to 9 only. So therefore, if the student did not attend this lecture or they are late, they come in at 9:30, they don't answer the quiz, so attendance is not being counted. Yeah. So another thing is allow multiple attempts. If let's say this is part of teaching and learning, we want the students to have multiple attempts. This is not an assessment. We want them to learn out of this. So allow multiple attempts. So if the students perform badly, the students can revisit your contents and then reattempt the quiz so that they can get better grades. So grading method is set as highest grade. Yeah. So now that we can teach theoretical knowledge to our students, So we can post them in UKM Folio and do some quiz. How about small group discussion? This is even more difficult. So most of the time it's done to face-to-face teaching. It is important to augment learning in small groups because we need the students to apply the knowledge in different scenarios. This itself requires higher order thinking, and it is usually done via small group discussion with a mentor or a supervisor. So in our case, we use problem-based learning, case-based discussions, and this is usually done in the wards or in the clinics. Also, because of this social distancing era, we are not able to do this. So in other faculties, you may have other platforms. For example, you perform experiments or you do work-related problems, and you cannot do this during the social distancing era. So what we did was we used Microsoft Teams as our platform. So as we know, in Microsoft Teams, there are many members. Some members are considered students, some are teachers. And of course, if let's say you are a teacher and you have a ukm.edu.my email, you will have full access to to whatever that is there in Microsoft Teams. So we create channels within the main team so that we can allow small group discussions. So here I would like to show you how you can do this. So if you have a big team, you click here the three buttons here, row three buttons, you click add channel. Then when you add the channel, name the channel, describe the channel, and put the privacy settings as private. So after you put the privacy settings as private, invite all the students and the teachers in that channel. So this way you can create if in Zoom we call this breakout rooms. So breakout rooms in which the members of the group can freely discuss things within their channel without the general knowing. So it's a very nice feature to use. So main thing, if let's say in our instance we do a lot of discussion so that the student can develop some clinical reasoning skills. So what I did was I thought about cases. So I write them in Google Documents. Why I do this? Because I can edit it on the go. So I can do some work at the hospital, do some work at home, and still it is inside my Google Drive. So I use related format. In the medical faculty, we have history, physical examination, So and we use our image repository to have all these sort of nice images. So these images are high resolution. So if we download it into UKM Folio, sometimes it might be too heavy for UKM Folio to handle because UKM Folio has a limit of 10 meg each download. So investigations, we do this on Google Docs, diagnosis and management. So this is how you can perform PBLs through Microsoft Teams. So now that you have the template on Google Docs, so you deliver it in bits and pieces to your students. So for example, I told the student, okay, we are going to do a PBL today. So the trigger is a patient who presents with nasal blockage, epistaxis, and tinnitus. What are your hypotheses? Students will answer. So by sieving through the information that is made available to them, they can now integrate what they have learned earlier on in the lecture, and they can critically analyze the history and deriving to a hypothesis. And when they are involved in this conversation, we can actually know how they are thinking. So this is the beauty. So sometimes when we are in the clinic, we are in a hurry because we also need to attend to them. We don't actually know what their flow of thoughts are. So this way, I was able to capture more on how they are actually thinking. So what you can see here is if let's say they give a response, you try to motivate them by using these emojis. You can have thumbs up, you can have loves, and of course all these small things are the things that motivate them to be more engaged in your contents. So the students can analyze data and evidences. You can put high resolution images like cities here, and you can even make the fonts pop up a bit. Yeah, put some highlighter. So from the discussion, giving the history, physical examination, investigation, the students are asked to formulate a clinical diagnosis, and then they are asked to develop and construct a treatment plan. And these are all how you can teach clinical exercises to the students, which I find very useful. Okay, of course, there are endless possibilities. Once you have curated cases for the students, many cases you can put up, and then you can continue to discuss them with your students. And I think the beauty is you can share cases with other supervisors. So let's say I have curated like 5 cases and my colleague have curated like 6 cases. So in combination, we have 11 cases to give to our students, for the students to think about, for them to develop their clinical reasoning skills. All right. So this is another example where we use high resolution images to basically augment our learning in my. Yeah, I like to take your attention to the bar graph here on the right hand side. So this is the analytics of the small group channel. So if you can see here, the purple bar here represents my posts. So if I, for example, my total post is 62, and the gray bar represents the students' replies. And so you can see that the students are actively replying, they're being very active. So this is something that is difficult to get in clinic sessions, in ward sessions, as well as in your lectures. So I feel that this is a very engaging way to get to your students. So in conclusion, in the social distancing area, I think we have to broaden our perspectives. When designing a particular lesson plan, you should have in mind the limitations of your students, the limitations that you have, like for example, my internet today. And also, I think we have to prioritize students so that we become relevant in this era of social distancing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, mashallah. Thank you very much, Dr. Mawada. That was brilliant. If there are any questions by the participants, please leave your questions in the Q&A section, and I will moderate them on your behalf. As we're waiting for questions to come in, Dr. Mawada, I'm just going to go straight into it. In fact, as I was listening to you, I took down 11 strategies that you utilize. So I kind of converted it into my mind as strategy. So I just want to go through each one if you have the time. But I like the first thing that you said. You know, you talked about the double helix, how motivation and intellectual perceptions are crucial in enhancing student engagement. And I like the 3 tiers of student engagement that you talked about. You talked about the first tier where they just listen and watch. You called it as a consultation. So they come, sit and they listen, you know, almost like they've got popcorns in their hand and just listening and enjoying their popcorn, right? So the lack of participation. And then in the second tier, you talked about partnership. You talked about how students are more actively thinking and relating to the content and even communicating with you. And the third tier, you talked about how the students become leaders of knowledge seeking, where they challenge the educator with questions and they push for new knowledge. Could you tell us some of your, this is my question, could you tell us some of your hacks, some of your strategies just to move from the consultation to the partner? Forget about the leaders, but just what are some of the things that you have done in your years of teaching that you found useful, that maybe we can even try? Because I agree with you, the switching students' engagement from the tiers of consultation to partners to leaders, that's the biggest challenge most educators are facing. So what are some of the things that you have done that you found, you know what, this works? Like, do you motivate them? How do you motivate them? You know, how do you get them to move that themselves? Yeah.
Yes. So I think I used Prof. Right. So in a lecture session, what I used to do is I used to pick on students. I used to prepare questions. Usually after 5 minutes of lecturing, there will be some interim questions. And these questions I will usually pick on students who appear as passive learners. I like to do that. So, but I find that this is not a good tactic because I may have passive learners. So instead, by using UKM Folio, I think I can have an overall view of the students as a whole. For example, if I use the quiz to basically address the critical concepts of the lesson, and I really want to make sure that the students score 80% and above. If the students manage 80% or above, then I'm good. And then I looked at all the questions, which of the that the students are not performing, and I'll do better in that region. So I feel that if I use better visuals and better audio, it tends to move the students from the level of consultation to partnership. In a lecture where it's so boring, where everything is just written on the slides and you're just listening to the lecturer, it's much easier to have the motivation low. It is very fortunate for me because my lecture content has a lot of audio. I talk about stridor, it's noisy breathing, so I can just have a sample of the stridor and then show to the students. So I feel that this is more engaging. You use many medias to engage to them, and perhaps you can use all these question and answers to engage with students. Another way which I recently found, I did not do this, was teaching via lecturing, was I use the active learning method. So think, pair and share. So let the students go through your lesson, go through your teaching materials, and let them work in pairs to produce something. So I've used this for my postgraduates and my undergraduates. So they can produce mind maps or even flashcards for your surrounding your lesson. And this way learning becomes more engaging to them. Yeah, those are my ways.
It sounds very ironic because when they are face to face with each other, where they can talk to each other and collaborate better, we don't do it. And now they are at a distance from each other. We're getting them to collaborate. We're forcing them to work in pairs, because Think, Pair, Share is actually an interactive lecture mode or method. And you're using it at a social distance, using a social distance as a social distance approach. So I find that very interesting. So follow up to that question that I asked you just now about engagement. How do you move from the consultation tier to the partner to the leader? Your last strategy, I'm going to go through it as carefully as I can. One of your last strategies, you showed us the bar graph and you showed us the gray bars and the black bars. And you said that students seem to be more active, right? When you showed us the bar, if you could just show us the last, second last slide. There was this bar graph that you showed us, right? And before the conclusion. Could you just tell us a little bit about how you fostered active learning? Yeah, this bar, because you showed, because the purple bits are the teacher or the educator's engagement, and the gray bits, you know, April 22nd, that's like the high, you know, at the peak of our MCO, and Faculty Perubatan just began their classes, their courses, right, in first week of April. So what specifically did you do? Or did you get your students to collaborate or to motivate other? Like, what it was that specific? Was there an instruction, for instance, that you said, you know, I'll give you marks if you participated more, or I'll give you marks if you motivate your friends to participate more. Like what's the strategy?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Rai. But I didn't do that. I didn't use assessment to basically force them to participate. And we didn't have marks allocated for participation in this PBL. It was totally voluntary. So what I did was I motivated them through all these emojis and gifs, and I brought through them through all the bits. So it has to be sequential so they can follow through the discussion. It can be something that can last long. For example, you do probably one PBL, you might end up using 2 days to finish the PBL. It's okay. In the earlier part, the students are still learning. They haven't completed their lecture, so they are very blur. So you just have to keep on motivating them to contribute in the discussion. And when the students give wrong answers, you just tell them try. However, there's certain things, right? They shouldn't be talking about this thing when the patient is complaining about the other things. That's how I did it. And I leave homeworks for the students. I find that very useful, because after going through a case, I usually leave the students. I have 3 students in the group. I leave them with 3 learning opportunities. So these learning opportunities are for them to read further, and they will present their friends. So the following session, they will just put on their materials on this channel, and all of us can view the materials that each other have prepared. So I think probably those are some ways that I use to motivate the students so that they can reply. I didn't use the rabbit and carrot approach.
So okay, on this slide, the page on the left, the screen on the left. So this is on Microsoft Teams, right? So you're using Microsoft Teams for synchronous engagement with your learners. Are you using the Q&A or the chat box for this?
So I'm using the chat box for this.
Any particular reason why you're using the chat box and not the Q&A?
I feel I like using the chat box because I can do these emojis and all these gifs, and it appears quite nice. And secondly, if the students put up a material, for example, that they don't understand, so I can quickly download the picture and I can edit it on my computer, put or use whiteboard or something like that to just scribble on it saying this is not correct. This is one of the reasons why I use the chat compared to the question and answer, because I think it is more versatile.
Brilliant. I mean, you're giving us lots of wonderful ideas and strategies.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I wanted to perhaps something that others too can benefit from all these platforms.
One of the early strategies that you mentioned, one of the first 2 strategies you mentioned that I wrote down at least, of how to use the mobile device to access UKM Folio. And one of the things that you said was that give them clear topics or schedule them according to some kind of a timeline. That means they follow the timeline that you have prepared. So they know that this week they have to do these videos, and then the following week they know so it's almost like you are managing their learning development based on the timeline that you have prepared. I like that very much. And the second strategy that you told us was what you did, using the mobile device also to give clear instructions. Is there anything that you do to assess whether your instructions is clear enough? Do you ask them whether they understand? Is there a way where you know, sometimes it takes a while to develop the skill of giving instructions, right? Now, you know what you want to say, you say it, and then sometimes you have to repeat yourself because they seem to not understand. Whereas in this situation, when it's social distancing, you put your instructions there, hoping that they will understand on the Moodle, on our UKM Folio. How do you gauge whether they have understood the instruction? Not they can do the task, but they have understood the instruction. Is there any strategy that you have developed?
with distance learning, communication is always a problem, kan? So what we did was, for backup, because we know that the students are on their mobile devices, they have WhatsApp. So we always tell them that if you have any questions, you just put it on WhatsApp and then we can clarify it for you. So the students have a way, so they don't have to troubleshoot alone. So in this instance, they feel less anxious. But I've never received a call from the students stating that they don't understand. So that's good. And I've been troubleshooting for the students because before they join the program, I collected their email addresses, forcing them to register on Microsoft Teams, so they know that they can turn on to me if let's say they have problems. So that's why I think they did not have any problems, because they didn't WhatsApp me personally or even call for anything. I didn't do any studies to assess whether the instructions are clear or not to the students, but so far I have no.
Okay. Right. And then the third strategy that you shared with us, I like this very much. You talked about the various 21st century workforce skills, you know, adaptability, complex communication skills. And one of the last one that you said was system-based thinking, right? Which I think is what we as educators need the most. We need to know, we need to be able to identify the system that best suits the current challenge that we are facing, whatever it is that we are facing. Like for yourself, your own in your own personal experience, is there something that you do to upgrade or update your own knowledge of the system? Do you kind of like read up about it? Like how do you know what needs to be done? Or how do you, what are the various systems available? Because I think that's what we as educators lack. You know, the technological know-how, you know what I mean? Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do?
The MCO, I did my lectures using Google Slides already. So I think I got that knowledge from one of the seminars that I was asked to attend. It's under pengajaran also, one of the seminars that you need to attend before you confirm, before they can confirm you as an academic staff. So I attended those and I was inspired to use Google Slides because I know that I can upload my videos on YouTube and it's easily linked to Google Slides. And then more regarding which systems to use, what apps to use, I got them from the courses from UKM Pengajaran, the webinars. Then I got those informations from there. Of course, I like to try things. So when I come across a certain platform, I just quickly go through it and see whether I can use this or not. If I think I can't use it, then I just ditch the idea. If I think I can use it and it serves my lesson plan well, then I'll more about it, and even go to YouTube. There are a lot of good videos on this. Don't worry, many resources available.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions. Your fourth strategy, you talked about how it's important to convert your lessons to low bandwidth, especially with our current situation. I think I like that very much. You talked about 4 different things that you do in order to convert lessons to low bandwidth. First is to conduct micro teaching. The second one, you talked about developing one best answers in the form of a quiz to check that what they have understood. So those one best answers quizzes, are they more summative type of assessment or formative type assessment? Do you take the grades, do you take the quiz as a form of grading of your final score? Or is it just to check whether they have understood the lesson?
Part of assessment, we just take that to evaluate whether the student understand our content or not, and
Right.
then we use that. I usually use that to basically so that I can improve my teaching materials, because maybe the students scored poorly in certain questions, so that means my teaching material was not good enough for that particular questions. So then I can improve myself further for the next session.
And
I
you
think
don't have to force the students to do this. You don't have to force the students to answer the 15 one best answers questions because there's no
I force them.
what's the incentive? Oh, you do.
I pass them because attendance is only considered when they answer these questions.
Okay. It's a okay. All right. Kill two birds in one go. All right, fine. And then you talked about the Q&A web app or WhatsApp web. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do you get the students to participate in the WhatsApp web? What does that mean?
Oh, I have a video to demonstrate that. Let's see if I can find that. Would that be okay?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
Participants, if you've got any questions, please leave them in the Q&A. Sekiranya ada soalan kepada Dr. Mawadah, mohon tinggalkan soalan dalam section Q&A dan saya akan cuba tanya soalan tu kepada Dr. Mawadah.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so this is what I did on WhatsApp web. So you know that the students like it when we show our faces. So I took a picture. This was my picture. That was the code that we use for PEDAC. Yeah? So I put all this in the WhatsApp web. I have all the students in this WhatsApp group, and was the score for their quizzes, and this was their work on PEDAC flashcards, and then the question and answers are lower. See, so for each of the questions, I gave them feedback, and they started to ask questions, and then I responded. I show why they are wrong using images, and it is a breeze to use through WhatsApp web. You can't do this on your phones because sometimes you need a picture that repository which is in your PC, so therefore you have to upload it into the WhatsApp. Using the WhatsApp web is very easy, so that's what I find. It's easier when you can show to the student based on pictures, and in medical faculty it's very important because we use these pictures for exams. Not these pictures that I'm showing them, but they are given pictures to interpret during exams. So to me it's important to show them the relevant anatomy and the problems that they may face when they are interpreting these images. So this is how I use WhatsApp web.
Okay, just a couple of more questions, Dr. Mawadah, before we conclude. You talked about micro teaching and how, the micro teaching videos and how, you need to kind of show videos like maximum 6 minutes or less. How many of these videos will comprise one lecture for your course?
Okay. For the dysphagia for dental students, so I had 3 videos, so total about 18 minutes. So that is a 1 hour lecture session. So what I did was, because I had a very short duration of lecture, so I asked them to do some pre-reading prior to the lecture. So, and then after that we had a quiz. Yeah? So for the stridor and tracheostomy, I had to make 7 videos. So 7 times 6, that's about 32 minutes, and that's a 2 hour lecture slot.
Okay, this is my final question for now, unless there's an audience question. When we go back to the normal way of teaching after the current situation, how do you plan to approach your teaching? Are you going to provide them with these kinds of short videos? Are you going to give them an hour lecture? Are you going to give them 2 hours lecture? What's your plan for your own teaching strategy?
Prof, right, actually, I vowed that I will go. I will stick with this because I will convert. Because I will stick to this because you see, I can now show to you that the students are performing really great on their evaluations. So the quizzes marks, they are getting marks like 85%, 90%. So why should I change? So whereas if I run a dry lecture before, there's no way for me to change this. I thought I'll just continue on and improvise from what I have.
And students are enjoying it, huh?
Yes. That's
Alright.
what matters most, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay. I don't see any questions from the audience. Hashim, ada soalan ke? Yang saya tak nampak sebarang soalan di sini. Ada tak soalan?
Tak ada soalan, Doktor.
Oh.
Ya. Saya rasa audience I think the audience have enjoyed and understood all the things that they needed to understand from Dr. Mawada. So bagi pihak pengajaran dan Prof Kamal, who is unable to join us today because he's in another meeting. Otherwise, he would be here and our team will be here as well. So I would like to thank Prof. Madia, Dr. Mawada Azman atas sesi perkongsian ini. Thank you so much for your sharing session. I appreciate it so much. I enjoyed it and I've learned a lot from you. And I would like to thank you so much for your commitment because you had to drive from the hospital back to your home just to attend this webinar with us. So thank you very much, and we hope that in the coming weeks, your students will continue to benefit from your sharing session. Thank you very much, Dr. Mawada. Dan hadirin sekalian, based on that presentation, we hope you have enjoyed your session with us, and please stay tuned for our upcoming webinar in the first week of July. We have our next webinar series coming up. Stay tuned for the promotion for that. Okay, thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak dan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.